Had this classmate of mine who was my classmate in Madras. I grew up in Madras, and actually, he was a junior of mine. So I had already come to Delhi, and he wanted to join the army. So he came to Delhi to attend the medicals and things before entering the army. And his name was Siva Ramakrishnan. Used to call him Siva. And so he's come in, and so we took him for dinner. He's a big made guy. And the first round, he got rejected because he didn't fit into the weight limit. And he got rejected. So he went on a crash diet. So when we went for dinner, he refused to have anything to eat. Then we went for a drive into Lutyens, Delhi. And and so we stopped outside Rajpath, got out of the car, walked up to India Gate, and we were looking up the walls and seeing the names of all the soldiers who had laid down their lives in the various wars going back to the First World War and even beyond the First World War. And he looks up at the names on the walls, which is like several thousand names. And Shiva says, "One day my name will be on that wall." And I looked at him like, what is he saying? You know? And and so we walked on, and eventually he got into the army. And 3 years later, he fell victim to one of those clashes that they had with in Jammu and Kashmir with terrorists. And and what struck me at that point when I got the news that Shiva died in a clash with these guys was what he told me on that day when he came on this trip, and we were looking up at the wall at India Gate. And it struck me at that point when he said that, what commitment, what passion does a man have that he's able to say that, one day my name is going to be up there. And what happens now is every year on his birthday, there is a get together of all his old colleagues and friends in Chennai, where his mother is the honored guest. And they remember him and talk about him, and there is a small celebration of his life. And then, so what I realized was, if that was the kind of, and I realized that business people, entrepreneurs, there are quite a few of these people who have left behind a legacy simply because of this passion that they had, because of 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 the commitment that they had to an idea, to say that I am going to make a difference in the world. I'm going to shake up the status quo that exists in the world. You hear a lot of these people talking about changing the status quo. They very rarely do you come across anybody who says, I'm going to make a million bucks in 1 year's time. People like Anita Roddick of Body Shop, and you got Steve Jobs, of course, and a whole host of current people as well. People like Sheryl Sandberg, and Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Jamshedji Tata in his time, Azim Premji, Shiv Nadar, all these people. What is that one thing that makes a difference to these people is their single-minded commitment to making a difference, and the passion with which they are driven. And you realize that generations will remember them afterwards. They leave behind a legacy that continues to impact people's lives, continues to to make a difference to people's lives. Uh, for me, the name that comes to my mind because I've been in advertising is a man called David Ogilvy. If you may or may not be aware of the agency name, but he was a man who just brought about a huge change in the whole advertising industry in the way that he ran it, and he became a huge name and so respected. And the thing is that, and he was a great communicator. He sent out a lot of memos, and a lot of his communications was about the way we behave and the way we shall treat client and the way we do our business. Because he placed a lot of emphasis on the ethical way of behaving, on treating people like human beings, on just being good in the work that we do and not being cutthroat. He was very clear about it. And he died a long time back. But the thing is that people who join the agency even today can recognize the culture that he left behind, that he created over a period of time, and that remains unchanged across the whole world, across all the branches that you go to. It remains unchanged. So you realize that it's about passion, and it's very little to do with money. So they rarely ever talk about money as such in the beginning. So my name is Justin Rabindra, and like I said, my background is mostly advertising, and I quit advertising in 2012 and became a full-time photographer because that had been a passion for a long time. So I've been doing a lot of food photography and interiors and travel photography for the last 7 odd years. And in the last close to a year or so, I've been doing storytelling because I used to do a lot of training in advertising, and I said, let me get back into training as well. Because who is stopping you from doing what you want to do? I can do photography as well as training. They don't clash at all. So in fact, on Tuesday, I'm going to be doing a photo shoot of food um, at a hotel. And then a little later in the week, I'm going to be going back and doing training. So so that's what we do, and we are all storytellers. So we do tell stories with photographs. We tell stories on webinars. So that's a little bit about myself. Shruti, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Dustin. A wonderful story to kickstart our beautiful session. Just at the start of every session, we quickly go through the do's and don'ts of the webinar. We would love each one of you to please participate with us. The success of our webinar lies in the participation that we get from our audience. The others, some really obvious ones, please make sure you are on mute when you're not speaking, and we would love to see you on the video. Please take notes wherever required. There might be some things that are new to you, the others might be really obvious, so you might want to take some notes. We can continue to interact during the webinar, but we would still have a separate question answer session right at the end. And please don't forget to leave us a feedback. That is extremely essential for us. Okay, moving on. We've heard from Justin. He has a rich background, and a little bit about me now. I'm previously from a finance background and had some 10 wonderful years in corporate life. And then I took a break from my career for motherhood. I have two wonderful children. And when after about 5 years of break, I wanted to get back to working and have an independent setup for myself, I chose training as well as storytelling. And why storytelling? Is because both Justin and I really believe in the magic of stories, the magic that stories have to engage with its audience and make whatever content we are talking about, make it extremely memorable, make an impact through the emotions that the stories generate, and with the kind of connection it makes between the teller as well as the listener. So that's the kind of magic that we believe in, and this is what we're going to talk about today from the point of view of business and from the point of view of an entrepreneur. The objective of the webinar, by the end of this webinar, these are the things that we hope you take away with you, and we will put in our best effort that you do. So what are stories? So some of you who have probably attended some of our previous webinars will probably think this is a repeat, but we always like to start with this concept because we have a lot of people who are attending for the first time. So what are the stories? What is the power of stories from the point of view of an entrepreneur? What stories to tell? How to craft a compelling story? Elements of storytelling so that you make a great storytelling which can be retained in the minds of the listeners, and some quick practice in the end. Okay, so because we changed the sequence, you've already heard the story. And Justin, do you want to take it forward?
Yeah. So, a quick word about stories. When we think of stories, we think kahaniya, fairy tales, and legends and stories that we tell our children, which is fantastic in the first place. But we sometimes underestimate the power of stories. And when you study storytelling, you realize and you discover that stories have been getting told for as long as human beings have been around, which is a couple of 100,000 years ago, or even a little more than that. So they've been telling stories sitting outside their caves and talking about what happened during the day. They impart information about how to make your fires, where to find water in the desert, how to skin and cook deer, what plants to avoid eating because they are poisonous. And mothers told stories to children to keep them entertained and got them excited about wild animals and beautiful creatures and things like that. But beyond that, human beings have been telling stories to each other. If you're interested in the history of storytelling, you should read this book called Sapiens by Harari. It's like fascinating reading. And he says that humankind needed to collaborate with each other to survive. And so first individuals collaborated with each other, they came together, and then tribes collaborated with each other and they came together. And as a result, more people survived the years and started living longer because they could defend themselves and learn from each other. And over the period of generations, you have an evolution of civilization itself. And so you find that stories have been a big part of our evolution and development of civilization through the times. And here we are today telling stories. And suddenly, in the last probably less than 20 years, businesses are discovering the power of stories. We intuitively know, I mean, in advertising, I would find that there were some people who were better than others in presentation skills because they were natural storytellers. And the moment they brought in stories, they got everybody's attention. They understood the point that was being made and they bought into what was being sold that much more easily. So while intuitively people have been telling stories and connecting with each other, it's being done in a far more formal way in the recent past, in the last few years. There haven't been too many books written on the subject. It's fascinating. I don't think there are more than about 10 books written on the subject of storytelling for businesses, which itself tells you that it's a very, very new industry. So even religions and myths, which we are so controlled by and which we so believe in, originally started with oral storytelling. They started as stories. They were not written down in the early days. And then they get written down, passed on generation to generation. And a lot of the way that we behave, not all of which is like good, is as a result of those stories that we believe, which is just an indicator of how powerful stories are in the way that it convinces, it gets people to behave. And therefore, shouldn't we be using it in business towards, achieving our goals and our objectives? Next slide, please.
Yeah, I have moved. Hasn't it changed for you?
No, it hasn't. So let me say something about why we as entrepreneurs should be telling stories. We are shortchanging ourselves by doing by not doing something so beautiful as telling stories and just talking about products and features and benefits and looking at just the money aspect of by just asking ourselves how much am I how am I what do I have to do to make more money. Instead of that, if we were to discover the power of storytelling, you'll find that not only does your entrepreneurship and your business do well, you also end up doing something beautiful and connecting people at a human to human level and making a difference and giving customers experiences that they would remember and talk about. At the end of the day, the way to do business is to connect with a customer and do business with him in a way that he enjoys doing that transaction with you. It's not purely a monetary transaction, right? It's a human transaction. And for him to be so happy that he will recommend a customer, that he'll recommend somebody else to buy from you, despite being one of several service providers in the market. Whatever product or service that you're offering, invariably you've got competition. And the way that you're going to stand out is by telling a different story, by telling your story. So that's why we need to be telling stories. So Jay Bayer says, if your stories are all about your products and services, that's not storytelling. If it's not a brochure, it's not a leaflet. You are giving yourself permission to make your business better, to make to to tell a better story, to make a better story by telling stories about yourself. Next, please.
Okay. So we've heard a lot about the power of stories. Now, in business, what are the stories that an entrepreneur can tell? We have seen forever that in business, trust is an extremely important factor. And if you remember the kind of trust that our forefathers or even say your grandparents had to a particular shop, and they would want to buy that X product from that shop forever. However, you want to probably convince them that no, the product is available there, the other shop is better, they would not want to move. They will buy the product from Sharmaji's shop only because he's either your grandfather's friend or your father's friend. So what if as an entrepreneur, you build that relationship with a customer? What if you have a LinkedIn network individual who's probably just a LinkedIn network converts to a friend and who has confidence to say, "Bhai, bhej de yaar, somehow just get it done." And to do this, you don't have to lower your cost. That can be done only through connections, through a bond, and that is done easily through storytelling. Having said that, what are some of the stories that you can tell? We broadly categorize our stories into these 4 areas, and we talk of each of them one by one. The origin story. The origin story is the story about why did you start the business? What made you start the business and how did you start the business? Was there an aha moment for you that, you typically like an apple falling on your head, that you had that moment, or a moment where you were probably troubled by a few things happening around you and you probably took charge of it and said that I'm going to start the business of it. Probably a food product, a coffee or something. We've seen a lot of stories of these entrepreneurs who probably did not like a coffee and decided to start their own coffee chain, or probably did not like traveling on other airlines and decided to open their own airlines. So this is the passion that probably began with a seed and became a huge empire in due course precisely because of the passion of the entrepreneur. When you tell these stories, or for that matter, if you are a second generation entrepreneur, it is extremely important for you to know and practice and tell the story of how your business began. What kind of effort or what kind of struggles did your father or your grandfather went through to establish this business? When you talk about these things to your customers, to your stakeholders, on social media, people empathize with you, people connect with you. They think as if the business is very close to them. They know the business and the entrepreneur inside out to be able to trust them. Moving on, okay, I would probably like to first ask, is there anyone who wants to unmute and say any origin story that they have heard in the recent past? Probably in the newspaper, probably as an ad or somewhere. There are examples of really good origin stories. Anyone?
So Shruti, you mentioned about the coffee one. I remember Starbucks talking about it and how they started Starbucks.
Absolutely.
So I think resonates very well there.
Absolutely. Some of us must have also heard the story of Uber, how 2 friends trying to hail a cab could not get a cab and then decided to start an e-cab service. We have heard the stories of how Steve Jobs or any of these people who were probably not entrepreneurs to begin with, started their business with very less money in a shed or something. This is something which brings you close to the bigger brands, and we as entrepreneurs need to replicate that.
Shruti, can I share a few examples here?
Yes, please.
So one of
Wonderful.
the stories, when we talk about the founding stories or origin stories, one is a very prominent one, how the Hotel Taj started.
Okay.
Okay. So it says that JRD went ahead to one of the properties in London. He was not allowed because there was a board on that particular property that dogs and Indians are not allowed. And because of that, we have Hotel Taj, which is a kind of a historic hotel property.
Yeah.
The second story from the same group is during 26/11, that how these people who are working with them, so they are not soldiers, but they fought the war with the terrorists.
Absolutely.
Saved a lot of customers.
Absolutely.
Another example which I'd like to share is the Oyo rooms. Although they are in a crashing situation right now, but there's a story behind it.
True.
Yeah.
True. So which kind of explains that this practice of sharing the story of your origin is popular. A lot of businesses are doing it. Then why not we as entrepreneurs do it for our business as well? Moving on, the next category is the why story. As per me, this is the most important segment of the webinar. When you are trying to portray your business out in the market, there are a few things that you can talk about it. One you can talk about is that what is the business you're doing? You are probably preparing a toy which is non-toxic or has some rounded edges, and it is very good plastic, or it's wood, or it's electronic. You can talk about that. But what we suggest is, let's not talk about the features. This sheet in front of you is a straight comparison between the features that most of the people talk about. But while what we want you to do is, we don't want you to talk about the features. We want to talk about the value that the customer gets from your product. What will that customer get if he buys the product? What will he feel? What will be his feeling when he kind of enjoys the product that you give it? So say, for example, for mattress, these are all examples. For example, mattress, let's not sell firm, durable, soft, comfortable. Let's sell a good night's sleep. For example, the next one, furniture. Let's not talk about the wood it is made of, warranty or shape or anything like that. Let's talk about that it is the storage space will unclutter your house. It will be a comfortable chair will probably make a warm reading corner in your house that you will love to sit there and read. Or a classy furniture that probably reflects your personality. That is the kind of value that you need to talk about. And when you talk and highlight about the value, then for a lot of customers, the price probably doesn't matter. So let's place the value of the product higher than the features, impact the customer emotionally that yes, this is where I really want the product, because this is how the product is going to make me feel. So as an entrepreneur, it is your responsibility to make the customer visualize how his life is going to change if he or she buys the product. Quickly running through the other examples, for content creation, we have a lot of people who are creating content for businesses, and you might also want to hire one to maybe design your website or something like this. He can keep talking about, I'm going to write original ideas and turn it around in some time. But there are hundreds of people who can do that. But can that content writer put you into the spotlight? Can he make sure that the audience, turn their attention towards your ad or your website or article? That he can promise is where he wins against all the competition around him. There are certain few examples for you to read. Does anybody else want to share any example over here that they heard, or they are already practicing in their own business? Anyone?
I would like
sir,
to.
any example?
May I?
Yes, please.
May I?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I happen to be a trainer, a talent development professional, and I am passionate about what I do because I've seen the power of it. So I used to be a very shy, introvert, quiet person, and having gone to another country and gone through many training and learning opportunities and experiences, I completely transformed into different individual, almost extroverted, friendly, and very social. So that's been my experience, and that's what gives me the energy to do what I do with passion.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wants to contribute? There's one example that somehow comes to my mind, which is not related to business, but how many of you really remember that famous dialogue from the movie Chak De, right in the end when the girls are about to go for the match, and Shah Rukh Khan kind of says that आज मैं ये नहीं बताऊंगा कि कैसे खेलना है. And he kind of paints a picture of what will really happen if you win the match or if you lose the match. He also says the line right there saying that is haar ka boj tum nahi seh paoge, which is another example of just painting a picture of the results of whatever is going to happen. Rather than telling them that you should play like this, that, hard work, confidence, no nervousness and all that, it's about painting the larger picture. We use similar examples and similar importance to the value for any kind of storytelling, any kind of project meetings or product launches that paint the picture of the value that the project or the product will bring to your company.
Shruti, I would just quickly share a incident. There is a medical store. There are actually 4 medical stores in our small market in Vasant Kunj, and there's one guy called Govind Store who has virtually 90% of the business in medical products. And the reason that people go clamoring directly to his shop is because he conveys the feeling that he's concerned about how you are feeling and are you taking the right medicine and are you getting better. So it's not like you go and you say, Mirko, I need this medicine, this is a prescription thing. He fills it out and gives it to you. He will ask you, what is the problem? Why are you taking this particular brand? You can take a cheaper brand. It's exactly the same compound. And when you go the second time, he'll ask you, are you feeling better now? Did those medicines work? What does the doctor say? Or sometimes he'll ask me, how is your father-in-law? He had dropped in the other day. He had a problem with his foot. Is he better now? So and the guy is, and he can't speak English. So I have to struggle to speak Hindi with the guy. But I keep going back to him. And most of the people go back to him because of this feeling he conveys that he's concerned about, how you are feeling and not just interested in selling the medicines to you. He's found his niche. Nobody taught him marketing. Please carry on.
Absolutely. Wow, thank you. Okay. So we quickly share this video wherein, we'll move on to the video now.
Your passion is. But I love that line, passion is your greatest love. Now, how does that apply to us as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, and as communicators? Let's think about this carefully. When I say you've got to be passionate as a communicator, it doesn't mean that it's all rah, and hey, I'm really excited, and raise your voice. That's not what I mean by being passionate. When I say passion, I mean tapping in to your greatest love. What is it about your product, your service, your idea that you really love? And don't be afraid to share that. So, for example, when I interview entrepreneurs for my Forbes columns, for my books, let's say I interviewed Richard Branson, who I did a few months ago, and I asked Richard Branson, what is your greatest love? You will not hear that his greatest love is getting people from point A to point B on an airplane. That's not his greatest love. His greatest love is disrupting the status quo. His greatest love is elevating the customer experience. That's a much more interesting and inspiring conversation than I'm in a company that builds airplanes. When I interviewed Tony Hsieh, the founder and the CEO of Zappos.com, one of the great customer service stories in e-commerce, his greatest love is not shoes. In fact, he doesn't even like new shoes. He wears old shoes till they're pretty much worn out. It's not about the shoes. His greatest love is delivering happiness. How do I make my employees happy? How do I make my customers happy? When I interviewed Howard Schultz for one of my books, this was several years ago, this was a big revelation for me. It was This completely changed the way I look at communication because I interviewed Howard Schultz for almost 2 hours. He was not the first person to bring up the word coffee. I was. And he said, yes, Carmine, coffee is what I make as a product, but that's not the business that I'm in. That blew my mind when it comes to communication because I realized the world's most inspiring leaders are not passionate about the product. They are passionate and excited about how that product can change your life. So when you talk to Howard Schultz, you realize it's so much more than the coffee. He doesn't even talk about the coffee. He talks about creating a workplace that treats people with dignity and respect, a workplace that elevates the engagement that employees have with their management. He talks about the romance of the coffee culture, but it's not so much about the coffee. After I interviewed Howard Schultz, he appeared on CNBC. I want you to watch.
Okay. Does anybody else wants to share about the passion story that they've heard anywhere?
Manpreet raised her hand.
That was earlier on, Justin, so I did share my story.
Okay.
Okay, so we quickly move on. Customer story. How often we have heard, we go to a shop and they tell us about some satisfaction that an ex-customer has had. We've had, I recently went to buy a new bicycle for myself. And when we went there, we had it in our mind, we want to buy a bicycle, which is a gear one, which is rather more expensive and rather more elite maybe. So we were quite sure we wanted to buy that. But when we went there, the shopkeeper told us, ma'am, aap wo khareed to loge, but it's going to start giving you trouble. You're going to drive it in the city. If it starts to give you trouble, the repairs, the maintenance is much more expensive. You're not going out for a race or something. You're not going out on a very long drive. You're driving only for, say, a hobby or something near the city and near your house. You really don't need a gear wala cycle. I just now had a customer who last week took a gear wala cycle. It kind of fell. It was standing straight and it fell on its side and something in it has broken. Now he's running around the shops to get it repaired and he's not getting a spare part. Now imagine the cycle seller telling me that story, convincing me to downsell, which is absolutely amazing. Why would somebody do that? Why would he really care? I can just, go to a shop, buy something and okay, bye-bye, Tata, won't even look his face again. But when somebody talks to you in a way that, one, that somebody else is experiencing trouble, which is why I don't want you to go through the same trouble. And two, he's probably not looking at his own profit as the sole motive of the deal. It actually builds a lot of trust. You end up believing the fact that this person is telling you something really honest and a good piece of advice. I really want you to think about some of the customer stories that you have heard in print media, in ads, in somewhere. Have you ever heard of any of such things? Do you realize that the ads use these stories somewhere here and there?
Yes, they do.
And any good example of it?
Okay, I like to share. I read in one of those storytelling books on business. And the story was, this book was written by ex-CHRO with Mahindra & Mahindra, the resort group.
Yeah.
So he mentioned this particular story in the book itself. So it said there was one of the resorts in Up Hills. I'm not able to recall that particular location. So there was one of the customers who got stuck. Either there was a landslide or some rally which was happening, and this customer had called at the customer service desk and told this person that I would be reaching very, very late to the hotel property and I've got 2 kids. It would be great if you could ask the kitchen to create or prepare some food for my kids or for us, because it's going to be post 11 and the kitchen might be shut. So, this particular customer service executive closed the day of duty, and this person realized that it's going to be something they would be a little late because of some problems at the road, and this person took cakes and other bakeries for the kid. So that's a beautiful example of customer service I read. And the stories had traveled across in the properties as a part of a value system, because that's a customer service is one of those values for Mahindra and Mahindra. Yes.
True, true, true.
Thank you.
More closer to home, thank you so much, Maheshwari. More closer to home, every ad at the moment talks about has a actor pretending to be a mom feeding the little one as a mom because she's pretending to be a customer. Or for example, when they're washing clothes, the mom is showing how white the clothes are, is kind of becoming a norm. It's been around forever. Through the ads, they are telling the customer satisfaction story. This ex-mom is happy with the kind of clothes is getting washed through the detergent, or happy with the kind of the kids are growing because of energy drink. That's all what advertising is all around. So again, when the big brands are doing it and it's an excessively successful trick, why not you and I also use it in our business? Next time you have a customer coming, or you are probably pitching for some loan or something, if you talk about the good feedback that you've got because of your product or your service, it actually makes you establish a credibility. And what it also does, it breaks the barrier, the doubt that is there in the mind of the customer standing right in front of you, to say that yes, so many other customers have been happy, why not I also try it? On a little funny and hilarious side, haven't we seen these ads all around? Why do they have to be there, the before and the after picture? Only to say that I have a lot of money, I have a lot of satisfied customers, why not you also try a product? Okay, so moving on. This is an interesting thing, behind the scenes stories. Any examples that anybody can share with me before I get started? Anyone? Whenever any movie is about to be launched, why do we have the actor and the actresses and the director coming and flocking on the shows of Kapil Sharma and dance shows and all that? Because they come there, they promote the film through the stories. They talk about what all they went through, what they go through while the movie was getting made. What were the challenges? What was the fun they had? What is the what is the kind of effort they went through? What was the technology used? This was so that they make an entire movie out of it to show it to the behind the scenes of any movie. This is so popular these days, especially the big budget movies of Ranveer Singh and all these Bahubali movies. This becomes like a mini movie. Why are people really interested to what happens behind the scene? Because they relate to such stories. And these stories need not always be success stories. It could be stories of struggles, of the failures. And included in that subject is, how did you really come out of that struggle? What did you do? What is the steps? How much passion do you have, to come out of the struggle, to sustain, to survive? One example of this here that all of us can start using right away is that we all are going through a crisis of a lifetime. And all of us are probably going through a time where our business is extremely slow. Why not share the story of how you are managing to survive? How are you managing to stay afloat? What are the changes that you have done in your business model to make sure that, you can at least manage to pay your staff? And how are you taking care of the staff for that matter? Did you let them go? Did you give them half the salary? Or, how did you kind of probably help them in kind to make sure that you support their families? A lot of companies have a very strong social responsibility segment also. They take care of, say the environment, or they have a segment where they take care of the education and all that. They promote that. Why? Because the customers feel related to such issues. They kind of making that bond that we also care about the society. We are a good business house. We care about the society. So why not you and me? Why not share the good things you're doing for the society, or for your employees, or for your customers? Okay. Any examples that anybody wants to share here?
Yeah, Shruti, this is Upendra from Advantage, Pune. Yeah,
Yes.
we solve the industry problems. Yeah, that is our story.
Okay.
So through design, through
Okay.
innovation design. So any industry problems are there, big industries, OEMs, they are struggling. So we approach them, they approach us to solve this problem through innovation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So
So
that is your value story.
yeah, value story. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
also like in the mobility space, yeah, a
Hmm.
lot of challenges are there.
Hmm.
How we can make use of so the story behind the starting of this company was, yeah, my director was, he was in a some German company, Germany. The bus used to if you want to suppose 80-year-old lady, yeah, and one dog you has to climb the bus, right? So the design was not, India it is not that, but in Germany, by pull of one button, the bus will complete, bus will come down.
And
Yeah. And smoothly it is, the lady can go inside with along with the dog. But in India, we are that kind of design is not there. So it is not at all, because all the people at a time they want to get into the bus all at a time, lot of struggle to get into the bus.
true.
Yeah, lot
True.
of injuries will be there. So our what we are thinking is, yes, we should have a good design which is human centric, and human centric, and solve the problems for the humankind.
True. True.
Yeah.
True. I think thanks so much for sharing this story. What this example is telling us that this is the story that can be used as the aha moment story. That
Okay.
you kind of saw that this trouble was happening. You had a solution in mind because you'd seen probably in Germany,
Yeah.
and that's what made you probably either invent or purchase or whatever this design. So you kind
Services.
of
Yeah.
believed in
We
this
started
design.
this service. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thanks for sharing. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I would like to share one thing. Just 2 days back only, I was just watching some videos on engineering superstructures here. So in that one, they covered the National Stadium of Singapore and how they designed to make the largest stadium of the world with a covered roof. The roof also which can move also. So they were in that 1 hour video, they explained how all problems they faced in designing their stadium. And with the minutely small problems also, they explained in that video. And it was very interesting to see that such a large projects can face such big problems also. It can take years of, thinking and planning to see how to execute the full project. Yeah, it was very interesting to see that full video.
Absolutely. So that is the behind the scenes story.
Yes, it was purely behind the scenes story that how what all problems they faced in designing and completing their project. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else would like to share anything?
Can I share? Because this triggered when Sir said about design and innovation. So do I have a permission?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So, this is a story of an MRI machine. I think this is of Siemens or GE, any of these companies. So the person who brought this particular machine of MRI scan, it's specifically for kids. Okay. And one fine day he went ahead to one of those centers where this MRI machines was placed. And he found that kids who were coming for MRIs, they were cranky, they were terrified because of this particular machine. Because the sound, if anybody has gone through the MRI machine, they know how what kind of sounds are there in the machine. The kids used to be really, really cranky. So what they did was, together he went ahead to the team and shared what exactly he saw and observed. And together they built up an environment where they had a beautiful cartoon characters on the walls where the machines were placed. And also there were the sounds of some fairy tales in and around when this machine was placed. So this is one of the beautiful example of design thinking, the picture. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Gaurav. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
So I have been with the storyteller for some time. I worked with Justin Ogilvy. So I want to share some, something that we did at the start of COVID for a client, where everybody was talking about washing hands, washing hands. So for a client which is into water solutions kind of product category, we started a campaign called Haath Dhoke.
Okay.
And we created a very nice jingle which is very peppy, Haath Dhoke, and become a very, very popular. We didn't spend any money on advertising, and it reached some 20 lakh people only through community, and kids shared their videos, the families danced on it, and it was very, very positive thing to do that. क्या क्या करना चाहिए, मास्क नहीं, बाहर नहीं जाना, social distance बनाना. It's a very nice rap. So it was just telling the story of how you can fight COVID by being happy, being together, dancing together now that you're at home, what you can do. So A, the story of lockdown, B, the story of washing hands, family together, dancing, and it gave us amazing dividends to the brand in a time when no brand was either in the market or they were worried not to talk about business anymore. We connected with the trade, some 7,000 partners across the country, their families, their communities, their cities. And surprisingly, when we went back to talk business in May, the dealer partners are after our life, sir, order क्यों नहीं लिख रहे हो आप लोग? You know, कि हमें और किसी brand से बात नहीं करनी है. So number 2, 3, 4, and we were at 6. And suddenly we are at number 2. Not a single penny spent, and the trade is harping our company that sir, माल नहीं भेज पा रहे हो आप लोग, क्या कर रहे हो?
True. Wonderful story. So you kind of made the point that without a lot of marketing money, you've been able to connect with your customers.
Absolutely.
Just by bringing the human side of the business in the picture.
And especially in these times, because human stories are motivating so much. And the success we are repeating for 2-3 clients. We are creating more stories, we are creating more narratives, and everybody is lapping them like, they are so thirsty for these kind of stories.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Gaurav, for sharing. You really made our point even more stronger. Thank you so much.
I didn't know you were the same Gaurav who was my colleague. बहुत टाइम हो गया, 8 साल हो गया.
आप देख लो Justin, ये लो. How you remember?
Which is why we love people to have their videos on. This time around, we have very few people with videos.
Yeah, I usually keep my videos on, but family and my dogs keep coming in, so थोड़ा और हो जाता है.
Never mind. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we move on, thanks everyone for sharing. As we move on, over to you, Justin.
So Anita Roddick is the founder of The Body Shop, which I'm sure all of you would know. If not all of you, at least all the ladies would know for sure, because it's one of those iconic brands. What I find, I'm a big fan of Anita Roddick. The interesting thing is, Maheshwari says yes. The interesting thing about Anita Roddick is she was not a trained marketer. She was a trained teacher. Okay. And she was a traveler. So she traveled a lot in Europe and the South Pacific and Africa. And she was exposed to a whole lot of, cultures which are different from England, where she grew up in, including rituals and customs and the way that they practiced health and body care. And suddenly, so she has this idea in her head, why can't I go back and open a shop and offer cosmetics and skincare products and hair care products in the using natural ingredients as far as possible, and also that avoid animal testing, because she was like an activist against animal testing. And so she opens the shop, and it's a huge success because, and she has just a small range initially, and she offers people the flexibility of bringing in the formerly used bottle and refilling it so that you don't have to pay the full amount, and then getting scents, just a sense that you want added. So she did not have to carry the entire, collection or entire bunch of products. A large inventory was avoided, therefore. So she used these little innovations which she just thought of herself. and it appealed to people, and she grew so fast. Before you knew it, a second shop opened and the third shop opened, and before you knew it, she was all over the place. The other thing that she insisted upon, and that came naturally to her, was child rights. She was involved in a big way with Greenpeace, with environmental issues. She spoke up against the Vietnam War, which was raging at that point of time. She spoke up on feminism, on animal rights, like I already told you. And then she insisted on fair trade, that people down the line get paid a fair price for their work. And so she insisted on this whole thing of ethical beauty, fair trade, human rights, protecting the planet, and all of that, which appealed to the ethically conscious consumers. And so people felt good about buying Body Shop products because they felt good about her efforts. And the interesting thing that has happened is that she died some years back. She started the brand 44 years ago, 1976. And today, the values that she propagated, that she brought and she infused into that brand continues to hold good despite being despite Body Shop having first been sold to L'Oreal, and then after that L'Oreal, and they sold it for some 562 million pounds or so. And a few years later, L'Oreal sells it to a Brazilian company called Natura for £1 billion. So you see that it's become from one shop in a place called Brighton near London. It's become a shop comprising, across the world. But the values that Anita Roddick stood for continues to be relevant even today. So when you walk into a Body Shop in one of the malls in Delhi or wherever you're staying, you'll find the same messages that are hitting you. It's all green, natural products, no animal testing, and things like that. The other interesting thing I read is that they insist that every employee of the Body Shop company takes 3 days off at least on company time to do volunteer work. So you see that germ of an idea that she had is emanating across all aspects of the brand, and in any way that it touches the consumer, you see examples of this. I got this. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see this? Yeah.
Yeah.
This brand, I bought this EDT, this OD toilet, some months back, and it's called Activist. Now, because I know the Anita Roddick story, I know why it's called Activist, and no other brand can carry off a name like that. She was talking about natural beauty, and she said that not every person can look like a supermodel, and we accept that. But you are beautiful in your own right, and our natural products are meant for you to feel good about yourself, and you are gorgeous the way you are, which appeals to, the majority of women. So the point I'm making is Dove are not the first ones to talk that story of natural beauty. Anita Roddick spoke about it long back. Activist, it's a great perfume. So that's a bit about branding and the fact that one idea can be extended across 360 degrees. So next is, let's look at customer journey. Now, when we are talking about customer journey, there are three parts to it. Again, we love, if anybody who's come for our earlier webinars would know that Shruti and I love this story arcs. We love arcs because it's such an intrinsic part of the way that you tell a story. A straight line is never a story. Like if you saw a movie, invariably, and a lot of our Hindi movies as well, boy meets girl, boy doesn't get married to girl immediately. He's invariably faced with problems. There are challenges and obstacles. They come from different families. Families hate each other, but these two will elope and eventually they get married. But they will face problems. So in the same way, when you look at a customer journey and a brand's interaction with the customer, you have a situation where Everything is normal for the customer. So this is from the customer's point of view. Everything is normal. And then there is a moment of truth when the brand or your product collides with the customer's needs and something happens. A relationship is built, a relationship is formed, and life is not the same for the customer after that. And then there is a new normal in the customer's life. So if we move on, let me just explain what each of this stands for. So if you look at normal, you need to look at what is the customer's problem. So for Anita Roddick, for Body Shop, the customer's problem was that the available products were all Me Too products. They were mass produced. They were tested on animals. And the message you got was they were just interested in profits. What pain do they experience? The question in customers' mind is, why can't a company be more people and animal friendly, less wasteful and natural? And how do they feel therefore? They feel frustrated. They feel guilty that they're contributing to an industry that tests on animals. What's the moment of truth? The moment of truth is this question of how does your product, so think about your product at this stage, how does your product solve their problem and pain? In Body Shop situation, how it solves the problem is there's the guarantee of no animal testing. It's skin friendly, natural ingredients. How does it make their life easier, or how does it improve your life? The knowledge that my body is safe from chemicals is how it affects my life, is the difference it makes to me. And that's a reassurance that, I mean, if any brand can reassure me, guarantee me that, they've got my patronage for life. How does using your product make you feel, which is very important? We're talking emotions here. How does the customer feel when he or she uses your product? In the case of Body Shop, my conscience is clear when I use a Body Shop product. Okay, so when I walk into a shop, despite the fact that Body Shop products are not cheap, you are paying a premium. They're expensive products, but I feel good spending that extra money to buy this product because they are doing all the right things. They're doing all the right things. And remember, like I said, all the right things they are doing today came from that lady, Anita Roddick, who had this idea, and all her values are still continuing and still working for her brand, despite it being owned by someone else, some other conglomerate altogether. So the customer feels, for the first time, here's a brand that tells me that I am beautiful and good the way I am. And they said it before doubt did. And what's the new normal? How is life different after I've started using the product? Think about your product. How is the customer's life changed or improved? Where Body Shop is concerned, I am contributing to a better, more compassionate world. What is enhanced and improved? Where Body Shop is concerned, the world is a better place now. And I feel good and beautiful naturally. How does the customer feel? Body Shop understands me. That's again the ultimate. Here's a brand that understands me, that gets me. It's like that Govind, my chemist down the road. He understands me. Let me go back to him. And as a result, it makes a difference to his bottom line. There are half of our colony, or more than half, have the same attitude towards Govind, the chemist. As a result of which, he's grown so big, he had to buy the neighboring shop and break down the wall and expand his chemist shop. So you realize that his attitude of care has translated into business for himself. He didn't start with the business idea. He started with, let me care for my customer. So that is the new normal. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. Before we move on, I quickly want to share all that we've talked about. How about sharing a story in a story form of what me and Justin do, so that gives you a perspective that we are also entrepreneurs who are running our own business. So when I tell you something about my business, I don't really talk about, we tell stories, we, do workshops. That's not what we do. We talk about in a way that Once an HR company got in touch with me, and this company has predominantly IS officers and IRS officers. All of these are intelligent people with very high egos. So they all were experts in their segment, but the company was having a little bit of problem to really, maintain the culture in the organization. This being a government organization, people came from various parts of the country. So because of the culture diversity and because of the value differences, they never gelled very well. So teamwork and coordination was a big problem for that organization. They got in touch with us and we conducted an art of storytelling workshop for them, and where we talked about why stories should be told in the first place, and then how to tell the stories, and then which stories that should be told by these individuals to each other or something. Now, at the end of the workshop, we conducted an activity wherein we put them together. So we put them into pairs and we told them to share one story about their life. So this was generally a story about the kind of struggles they're facing through or about their past and all that. By the end of this activity, the people bonded extremely well. But why? Because the stories that they told each other broke the differences. They could now empathize with the person sitting right next to them. They could kind of, you come at the same platform. Yes, I am also away from home. I miss my village, my hometown so much. With sitting in Delhi, I really want to go back to South or maybe to wherever. So they are coming from different places, but all of them are away from home. They kind of gelled at those areas. Or a lot of other areas, the struggles that they have gone through to maybe, clear the IS, the kind of effort all of would have put in a lot of effort to clear their IS exams. So there were a lot of common ground where they all agreed. But because they had never sat down and talked about these, there was a lot of differences there because of the diversity. Once we conducted this workshop, we received some wonderful feedback from the participants that they were feeling so lighter and so enriched by listening to the other people's story. We received some very good feedback from the company saying that now people gel better. There is not much ego. There is better teamwork. The culture of the organization has improved. So this is the story. So now coming back to the slide and the arc on the bottom right, if you see, we're talking about that we build you up with with some context right before what we did, that we developed the characters, we talked about that, and then we came to a point that what was the problem the customer had and what kind of solution we brought together to mix that together. That's we call the moment of truth. And then we bring the arc down. This is the traditional story arc. Then we close our story by saying what is the benefit and what is the value that the customer got from our service. The advice that we're giving you here is that you need to replicate this story arc in the kind of stories that you tell at various places. Okay, moving on.
So these,
Justin, would you like to go?
yeah. These are the elements of a good story. You'll find that any good story would have these 4 elements. So when you're creating your story as well, when you are thinking of the story to tell of your business, of your brand, you need to have these 4 elements. The first is the character, a clearly identifiable character. So we are not talking therefore features, benefits, factory, technology, code, and all of that. You're not even talking about your brand and logo and your business plan. You're excuse me. You're focusing on the character, a person. Very often it's you, the founder, because people identify with people. They don't identify with inanimate objects. The moment you start telling a story about a person, you've got people's attention. Then you need an emotion, like any good Hollywood movie, which overdoes it on emotions. Every story needs to have emotion. Not all stories have emotion, but the moment you infuse emotion into the story, you are connecting at a human level. Something changes in the listener's brain. You need to move your audience emotionally. So you can use your analysis and research and get customer feedback and all of that. At the end of the day, you want to determine what is the thing that she really cares about? What does the customer really care about? And make it an emotional thing that you're talking about. And then there has to be a moment, that moment of truth we talked about in an earlier slide, that is critical. So this is where the product meets your customer need, when the value of the product is realized. And I told you about my activist body shop from Body Shop. The moment that you discover that the company gives you 3 days off on company time to go volunteer work, that is like an amazing moment to talk about. The moment when Anita Roddick discovered, I mean, she was a teacher. She didn't know anything about the perfume industry. And then she discovers that that thousands and thousands of animals, innocent animals, including rabbits and monkeys and rats and whatnot, are being tortured to death so that we can have perfumes and beautiful smelling, uh, skincare products that are harmless to humans, but thousands of animals have been sacrificed. The moment she discovered that, she said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to make a difference to the world. And there were enough people, enough customers, men and women, who identified with what she felt and said that I agree with her. I'm getting on board with her. I will buy Body Shop products. So that's that moment we are talking about. And then you need to have details. You need to have details that a customer can latch onto. This is about product customer knowledge. It's the details that makes the customer go, they get me, they understand me. And the details really convey empathy. It's what makes a story memorable. And at the end of the day, you want to make that story memorable, because there's no point, and the thing is that the Body Shop story, anybody who knows it identifies with it and will remember it for generations to come. The beautiful story about the thing about Body Shop is that it connects with something so deep in a human being that it will never go out of style. I mean, I can see my granddaughter buying Body Shop products when she grows up, despite the fact that the brand was launched in 1976, completely 3 generations before her. So can we go to the next slide, Shruti? Yeah. So here's a little message from Mr. Branson. And observe
there is a very, very thin dividing line between success and failure. Most people who set up in business without financial backing, they fail at some times in their lives. And I've only just stayed at the right side of that dividing line. For instance, just after we had a record company, I was fed up flying on other people's airlines. I felt that the experience of flying on other people's airlines was an unpleasant one. And I decided to set up an airline. Our bank went into complete panic attack. And when I came back from doing the inaugural flight of Virgin Atlantic's very, very first flight from London to New York, I came back to find the bank manager sitting on my doorstep and informing me that they were going to close Virgin down on the Monday, and this was the Friday, and that I had 2 days to effectively pay them off the monies that they'd loaned us. And I remember pushing the bank manager out of my house, telling him he wasn't welcome, which is a dangerous thing to do to your bank manager, and then spending the weekend ringing around the world to all of the distributors of our music, asking if they could give us a temporary loan to get us through the following week, which they were good enough to do. And by the end of the week, we'd changed banks. We'd actually managed to find a bank that was willing to lend us 30 times the overdraft facility that our bank had lent us, and we managed to survive. And I think the moral of that story is actually don't think of your bank as somebody that you're beholden to. I mean, people just don't move from one bank to another. Sometimes you need to be willing to step up and move your banks in the same way that you should step up and move your doctor on occasions, or Anyway, I learned from that lesson.
So that is classic storytelling.
It was a very
And you'll find all four of these elements here. He's talking about himself. He's talking about that situation when he was flying back from New York to London on that first flight. You can make out that it's an emotional story because he's got this business going of this music distribution business, and the bank manager is threatening to pull out his money, and he's got 2 days. And can you imagine? He's got 2 days to pay off his loans and close that account with the bank, and then he has to appeal to his distributors, make calls to get a loan from literally his vendors to his distributors, and not vendors, sorry, to his distributors, and he does it. They trust him, and he manages to recover. So that's a fearful situation. I mean, it's high on emotion. And then that moment, I mean, there are at least 3 moments there. When he comes and discovers his bank manager sitting at his doorstep, when he throws the bank manager out, and then he's wondering, like, did I do the right thing by treating my bank manager like that? And then speaking to his distributors and actually recovering and getting a bank to give him an overdraft that's 30 times more than the first bank. And you realize the details that he's talking about. Now, everyone who has seen this video of 2 minutes will always remember this Richard Branson story. Classic storytelling. These are the 4 key elements that you need to keep in mind when you are telling your story: character, emotion, moment, and details.
I just want to add, he very subtly also put that point there, that what made him start his airlines. He says he was tired of flying on the other people's airlines, and which is why that was the spark which made him start his own airlines. So that is also one moment that he added here.
Beautiful.
Does anybody else want to comment on the video? Anything that they liked in the video, or some other elements that we would have missed or something? Okay, one more thing that happens when that happened in the story here is that he's not sharing the story of his win. He's talking the story about when he was struggling. So what that does is that you share your vulnerabilities with your customer, with your stakeholders, with your bank, when you're going for a loan or going public, wherever. When you share your vulnerabilities with the other person, you are not that larger than life image. When you see videos like this, you kind of relate with these people, that, you know, these people are such successful people, but still they have gone through the struggle like a common entrepreneur like you and me. So you relate to these people better. Same thing happens when you tell the story about your struggles to your customers or to your stakeholders. They relate to you better. Okay, quickly moving on. We are a little behind schedule. We would like some of you to please unmute yourself and tell the story about your business. So now this story could be any particular moment that you want to tell us about. So a little bit before that moment and after the moment, kind of what you felt and what you went through, or any other story about the origin, about a customer, or behind the scenes, how you've been dealing COVID, or how did you have one very successful moment for your business? Anybody, please.
Shruti, Vijay Tahaji here. Can I speak?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, please.
Well, it has been really a very educative experience for me, listening to Justin and you, and the number of stories which have been mentioned are really elevating. Many things have come out of the discussions, but 3 things I noted are very, very important, and that is the credibility, which you mentioned. Then what I feel is the integrity, because if a good business, if it's only can happen if its players stick to integrity. Because wherever, if you see the successful stories in the world, in the business in particular, integrity to my mind is the most important, and integrity has many, many facets. This is a very large area, I'll stop it here, but I am really happy to participate in this webinar and listen to all of you, and my very best wishes. I also suggest that if you have time, you should visit, all of you, a website, www, you can note down, www.giraffe. Am I audible, please?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
Okay, please. So this is www.giraffe, GRIAFFE, that animal with the long neck.org. Now, this is the website which tells you about stories of giraffe heroes of the world who are doing very, very brave things in the world in various sectors. And perhaps if you go through it, you will see many elevating experiences of people who are doing brave jobs in the world. This is, the headquarters is based in USA, and we have also India website, www.giraffe.org/global/India. And the main purpose is to tell stories of the unsung heroes of Indian society. Have a look at it. The website will tell many things about it, and I'll be very happy if you connect with it and spread the word. It will make a better world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else wants to share the story of their business as an entrepreneur?
Shruti, hi, this is Pankaj. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, you and Justin. Such an amazing session. So thanks for the knowledge sharing and all of that.
Thank you.
I just would like to share a story of my company. When we started Pursuance Global Business Solutions a couple of years ago, we were pretty much into services sort of sector, helping out industries to reduce their operating cost with some consulting and services kind of business. But then last year in 2019, we decided to sort of adopt the new change of technology and converted all our prototypes into software products. So we built out a couple of great software products entire 2019 and launched them somewhere in Jan 2020. We were so excited to sort of get into the business development of our software products and everything. And then this COVID situation happened. And then we were absolutely thrown back that we couldn't proceed with our BD efforts as we were planning out. And then we had no choice but to sort of adopt the new normal, as you rightly have on the screen, that, due to COVID situation, many companies are not able to sort of survive or not able to sustain. So we decided to sort of, start doing some online kind of trainings with the knowledge that we have gained over the period of 10, 15 years of corporate experience, and start spreading the knowledge through online sessions. So that way we were sort of, able to generate some revenue, sustain in this kind of situation, help out paying salaries for our staff. And also at the same time, we took that opportunity as a time to refine our software products in more refined manner. And planning to sort of relaunch them once the situation gets normal, so that we can go forcefully behind that. So that's how we managed to build out great products. Then the situation happened, accepted the fact that this is going to be tough time. We have to sort of just survive for year 2020 and then come back stronger in 21 and get the products out there. So that's just a brief story about my company.
Perfect. If I just may ask, have you been sharing this story with anybody?
Anybody in the sense?
That's the question. Anyone for that matter.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we've been talking about some other platforms also, yeah.
Yes. So the point I'm trying to make here is, sorry to put you in a spot, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that sometimes we don't share the stories very often. We think that we don't have sufficient platforms to do that.
Correct.
But in this current world, if you share these stories through articles, through blogs, on your Facebook pages, on your LinkedIn pages, the world will connect with you better.
Yes.
So that is the point that I'm trying to make, that there are very often these questions that people ask us, ठीक है आपने storytelling तो सारी सिखाती, but इसको use कहाँ करेंगे? So, we want you to use storytelling in every aspect in your communication when you are, so that's the next segment. We'll come on to that, when you're looking for a loan, rather than going there with a PPT full of data, if you don't talk about the data, just talk about the passion and your day-to-day activities that you do, and how well you've been managing your business, all where there were struggles and you've managed to come out of the struggles successfully, will work much better and be more convincing and more credible than the plain data that generally works. So that was just not for you, that was for everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Pankaj, for sharing.
Thank you. Yep,
So
my pleasure.
we've got 3 people raising their hands.
Yep.
Ravi, shall we let the ladies go first? Goodlin,
Sure.
Goodlin,
Justin.
Thank you. Goodlin, would you like to say, talk? Unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Justin. Hi, Shruti. Actually, I had raised the hand when Shruti was sharing the value and the customer perspective bit. So maybe I can share the same experience, because I don't have a personal story right now. So I was reminded of, MP3 players. And back in the day, if you look at, companies like Creative, I think Creative was the first, brand which introduced MP3 player. But we don't remember Creative as MP3 player. We remember iPods. And why do we remember iPods? Is because the kind of messaging they had in their advertising. They said, they did not say that our iPods have like 1 GB space or 2 GB space. They said 100 songs in your pocket, which means they are looking from a customer's perspective, from customer's lens. So I think that's a great story telling in a business context.
Absolutely. Apple is the top example. Steve Jobs was a master storyteller, and he has always made all his presentations from the point of view of the customer. So that's a wonderful example. Thank you so much. And sorry, I did not realize that you had raised your hand previously.
No problem at all. Yeah. It's a great session. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Manpreet, you had raised your hand earlier, is it? And we had ignored you.
That was earlier, yes.
That was earlier, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Ravi, please carry on. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Shruti and Justin, for this opportunity.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks for coming back again to us. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I just wanted to share a small story. It's an accidental entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a hardcore marketing guy, both in the domestic as well as in international marketing for 30 years plus. So I was taking a cool backseat, but I have a pretty daughter, slightly intelligent, and she wanted to do something on her own. Like what happened was, she doesn't want to do the regular 9-to-5 job because she wakes up a bit early and she wakes up a bit late, and she doesn't want to attend an office at 9 and end at 5. She wants to have her own timing, like maybe wake up at 10 or 11 and then start work at midday and go through it night. So it was very difficult because she got a job and then she didn't survive well. Then finally one day she said, I think I have to start my own company. Oh, before that, I have to tell that she's into digital marketing, branding, communication, and all that. That is her field. So one fine day, then she asked me, Papa, you have a marketing experience. Why don't you help me? We both of us set up a company, and I will have my own timings, and we run the company. And I'm not hard pressed to earn big monies or want to become a Tata's or Ambani's, but I want to be in my own space with my own speed and a whole set of companies. I would like to chew how much I can. So I said, fine. So I was basically you can say a sleeping partner, but I helped her in set up the company. And now it's been nearly 2 years. I help her in doing the marketing part of it, how to meet a client, how to make a presentation and do that kind of stuff. But actual technical stuff, she does it. So last 3 years, she's been branding for companies like food companies like Nirulas, reviving the brand up, which has gone down. Some Zinc London, Banyan Tree, etc., about 5-6 companies. So in a way that I was not keen, I was working all through in different companies, but the last couple of years I became an accidental and co-partner and entrepreneur. This is, And my daughter is quite happy because she wakes up at 11 o'clock. She starts her work at 12 and works late. She's happy with the timings, and she's quantum of work also. She just takes that 4 or 5 clients and she's happy. She doesn't want to expand too much. So in a way, it worked nice for her. And I was never thought in my life I'll become an entrepreneur, but by virtue of having a daughter like that, I became a part-time entrepreneur. This is a small story I have.
Thank you, Ravi. We should have had her on the call, yeah, and let her tell her.
I know.
I'm sure she would have skipped the part where you said that she wakes up late.
Yeah, and she's right now chilling in Rishikesh. She wants to get out. Last 5 months, she's got so bogged in this Corona thing. So that's yeah. Maybe next time I'll call her for the call.
Right.
Yeah. And just if you have, yeah, welcome. A couple of minutes, I would like to tell a very old story connected to Sir Richard Branson, which Justin was explaining.
Yeah, briefly.
It's actually, yeah, I'll quickly wind up that one. It's, if you know, about 20, 25 years back, there was a company called Carrier Air Conditioners.
Yes.
I'm not too sure whether it is still there or not, but those days there was a lot of competition between Carrier, some Indian brands, some Korean brands, etc. The sales were going down for everybody because there were a lot of quality issues, etc. So they employed a person who was a CEO of the Carrier to revive the brand. But unfortunately, I mean, the strategy, I don't know what was the strategy. They employed a person who was good at doing the servicing, not in sales. It was a different strategy they adopted. So this person, he took up the after-sales complaints every day, regularly, from 10 to 12, 2 hours. He used to call the dealers, the distributors, the sales team, and the service team, and find out what was the actual problem happening with the product. All companies had the problem of servicing. Some issue was there, but Carrier took this particular thing. They didn't concentrate much on the sales. They concentrated only on the service part. So in the process, what happened was they started attending, and he put some KPIs, key performance indexes, like a small complaint should be attended in 2 hours, major complaint should be attended in 24 hours, and the case should be closed within 48 hours. Some performance index, yeah. So that, there's a tight control. So in a week, 6 days, he used to attend the after-sales service call meetings, and only one call for the sales people. He never concentrated on the sales. People were a little surprised, why, what is this kind of strategy? So slowly over a period of time, the word started spreading that Carrier service is the best. In 2 hours, they attend to a complaint and it is sorted out. Yeah. And he made a repository of all the complaints and what to be attended. So next time somebody has a typical complaint, they know exactly from the database how to attend that without any issue. So within 4 or 5 months, suddenly the dealer started talking about Carrier. Oh, this is the best company, you should go, because any problem, like you're talking about the bicycle which you wanted to buy. So this company is the best because they have a complaint, they will attend in 2 hours time. Or the other company, the Korean company, they will take 48 hours to register the complaint. After that, somebody will come and all that. So this has become a negative publicity with others and publicity for Carrier. Suddenly the Carrier sales automatically picked up because of this. They didn't do any sales promotion, but this indirect after sales service, or like what Branson felt other companies, airlines, what they are not providing, he must have provided in terms of comfort, services, etc. So that's how Carrier became, and I think those years, about 95, between 95 and 2000, they were crossing more than 50% of the sales in the air conditioned market. So this is a very old story, but just for bringing up the new normal, which Justin spoke. So this happened 20, 25 years back. So this is another story I thought, let me share it with you people. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to speak.
Thanks for making the point that it's not the product, but probably the service and the relationship later on helps the product more. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we are actually late now, so we'll probably skip the interaction. Okay, so Justin, would you like to conclude?
No, you can conclude.
Okay, so I think with this we come to an end to the webinar. We would like to end with this famous quote that said that marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell, because stories will help you bond, the stories will make you memorable, and stories will help the customer stick, because then that's how they make the relationship and then they stick. Okay. Last but not the least, like we were discussing, this is an important aspect. Where do you tell the stories? You tell the tell stories, or tell your staff to tell these stories, depending on, because we've discussed a lot of stories and a lot of areas from where you can pick up the stories from your business. These are the various areas. Then it is up to you to which story to tell. Sometimes an origin story will fit better. Sometimes a customer story will fit better. Or sometimes your struggle story will fit better. Depending on the circumstances, you can change your story. But these are some of the areas. Sales and marketing, customer relationship. So you tell the story of one customer to another customer to maybe help them break the barrier that they have, whether they want the product or not, whether it will suit them or not, and things like that. Loans and funding. When you, like we've discussed this before, when you're going for a loan or something, you're going for a loan or funding, taking credit from the bank was an extremely common thing that happened in the past, does happen now also. It was completely on the basis of trust. It was a lot on the basis of what is the relationship that you have with your bank manager. So yes, telling the stories and making a bond also helps there. Hiring. How is hiring important here? In startups, in small size companies, you might want an employee that you cannot afford. If you share your experience, your passion, and if they kind of agree with your passion, if they believe in your passion and your passion becomes their passion, you will manage to hire people, those who you cannot afford. They will agree to join you at the risk with the vision that, yes, your vision is my vision and we all will grow together. So that is a very interesting point that you can explore. Social media, like I said through Pankaj, that, articles, posts on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Insta, telling people about how you're running your company, what fun your employees are having, or what effort your employees are putting into turnaround and order, or how did you innovate, how did you change, how did you probably build from one factory to 2 factories and 3 factories, now you have a huge company, a comparison between starting with as an entrepreneur and moving into a point where you have about 25, 30 employees. So that journey interests people and they relate with you better. And networking, obviously, when you go to a networking event and they ask you what you do, don't talk about what you do, talk about why you do it. Why? What is the passion that drives you? Why are you selling a product? Because this product gives this X value to my customer, which is why I'm in the business. So I would not say I am into the business of storytelling and I tell stories. No, I believe in the magic of stories, that they can engage people and that they can motivate people to take action, which is why I do storytelling. With this, we come to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much. Apologies that we finish about 10 minutes late, about, yes, 8 minutes late. If anybody wants to stay back and interact with us, have question answers or something, please let us know. And thank you so much. Please make sure you leave us a feedback. I have sent a form in the chat box. Please leave us feedback before you leave. It is extremely important for us. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking out time.
Thank you, Justin and Shruti. A wonderful session. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being
Thank you so much. We would love to hear your feedback.
Thank you so much, Shruti and Justin. Both of you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you.
session. And a good stress breaker, actually, from the Monday to Friday, back-to-back Zoom meets and everything. At least you can do something to think upon over the weekend.
Yeah.
And, probably capture some of the things that you told.
Lovely.
So,
Gaurav,
good.
we'll catch up. We'll catch up during the
Yeah,
week.
yeah, Justin. Yes, for sure, for sure.
Thanks, Gaurav, for sharing your story as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless you. Stay safe, everyone, please.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.